All right, so I'm doing this little breakdown here because we had a really good moment against Murdoch a couple weeks ago. This is the black team, by the way, where we managed to show a lot of really good habits and we really controlled the tempo of the moment well. And that's kind of one thing I've been trying to encourage us to do. I know it's a difficult aspect of the game, but watch and take a look at it. Here's the play right now. So goal kick, Joe goes to Dan, Dan goes to Jordan. Jordan takes a touch wide, hits a beauty to Henry, who skins his man who was out of position, and he shoots wide. It's simple, it's short, but there's a lot to it that I want to talk about, and we're going to start with the starting positions. So the first thing you can kind of see here is that both teams are playing a 2-2-1 with narrow defenders and wider mids. It creates this kind of pentagon formation, and the reason we're doing it is probably different from the reason they're doing it. So what I would assume is that their coach's reasoning is, okay, so we're going to have a 2v1 at the back. That way if they push another up, we still have a 1v1 and another 1v1. But otherwise, their striker will be able to get managed by our two. Okay, fair enough. Good way to play. They want a man mark in the midfield. Okay, fair enough. Good way to play. And then they are willing to give us the space short and just go 1v2, 3 if you count Joe there. So that's probably their logic in this whole thing. For us, and I know I don't really talk about like positional philosophy here, like formational philosophy, but we are playing in a similar formation and attack because what we want is that gigantic open space in and around the center circle. And the reason we want that is for players to move into to cause problems, right? The bigger that space is, the more our formation can cause issues there. A team like Glenlawn, they keep that area nice and tight, and it's actually really hard to penetrate. But with these guys, they didn't understand that, all right, because we're doing a low block, maybe our forward should just drop in and protect that space. If they did that here, you would probably see how it kind of gets countered somewhat. Although, that being said, Jordy and Henry still combined really well here. So let's talk about the positions of our players individually. So as I kind of mentioned before this game, Dan is closer to Joe and in front to kind of prevent that counterattack and to be a bit of a shorter passing option. And Jordy is wider to give himself more space. I really like the way you two set yourselves up there because Jordy is a guy who tends to hit long balls, so giving him the space is good. Dan is a bit more defensive minded, so having him central, good. Intentional or not, we're kind of playing to our strengths there and not trying to, fudge things a certain way or have players be like, well, I want to attack, so I'm going to be the guy out wide, right? It's important to recognize that within our team that we do have roles, we do have kind of good traits that we use and can use and abuse in different ways. Like, for example, I've been more and more thinking of Henry as a wide player after this season just based on the stuff he does out there. And so, for example, when he's on a line with Toby, things become problematic because Toby is also a bit of a wider player. So, last game against, who was it? Oak Park, I threw Noah in, and I told him, hey, you're just going to defend the middle, and we're going to let Henry do the attacking and be more like an asymmetric 2-1-2. It works. But one thing I do want to talk about in a lot of depth here is, first of all, Henry versus Aaron. So if you look at their respective positioning, it's interesting because I think it's pretty clear the side you want to attack here because we have a numbers advantage on our left side. So that's the right side of our screen right now, right? We have, Jordan in the back and the forward does eventually go to him. We have Aaron on the like higher up, and that's a 1v1 I would take all day because he has so much space there. And then Tom, if you look at how he's standing with regards to the defenders, he's parked on their right defender, and their left defender is kind of marking space. Now, the littler things, the small details here that I do want to actually touch on is Henry's positioning in regards to his defender versus Aaron's positioning in regards to his defender. And I think it's a function of their formation or possibly laziness on their part. But if you look at Henry, he's in behind, okay? So Henry gets in behind his guy just slightly. Not enough to make the guy consider to move, not enough to bring the defender out, but enough that he creates a bit of space. Aaron is in front, and whether you're in front or behind, that has a different it has a different meaning that I kind of want to get across to you guys. So if you're in behind, obviously you want the ball in behind, or you want to be out of sight for a brief minute or two or moment. Both have their ways. You can come in behind and then, try to dip into an area and receive the ball. Like if Henry would have dropped in behind and then rolled into the center, totally fine. But we actually see Aaron do that. So I'm gonna play it on now, and we'll talk a little bit about Aaron's movement and then Tom's movement off of that. All right, so let's talk about Aaron's movement first. Aaron kind of starts ahead of his defender, so he's within sight. He's purposefully, hopefully, doing this to kind of attract his attention. And he makes a little diagonal run inside to either free up Jordan or create a diamond to bounce with Joe, Dan, and Jordan. If it's the latter, okay, no problem. But it's important to remember that we have numbers there already, so why not keep numbers higher up the field and get the ball in a more dangerous spot? If he's doing it to free up Jordan, he does an amazing job. So the run between the striker and the midfielder kind of compresses them a bit, which I think is very effective for what we do here. So let's talk about Tom now. So Tom's position here is good as well. And the run he makes is good in order to create space for himself. So as I mentioned before, two defenders. One is kind of more leaning towards Henry. I'm not sure if that was intentional on their part or if it's just how their formation kind of ended up washing. But what we'll see is when Aaron begins his kind of slow run in front to attract players, Tom takes that space in behind and pulls not his defender, but both of their center backs to the right. That little movement that Tom makes their left back kind of half step in, combined with Aaron's little movement. The left back also is looking at Aaron as a problem, and it frees Henry up because the guy who's marking Henry, he's probably thinking, I got a defender behind me, so I can leave this run to happen. Take a moment now to just watch how the defenders react to Aaron and Tom's movement. Also, look at how great of a little path that Jordy has to dribble line or hit a ball to Tom, or also he could dribble and then hit a ball to Tom. All three of those things that Jordy had as options worked. Critically as well, note the timing on these things. And that timing actually isn't possible without Joe going to Dan first, who then kind of starts the play and then plays it out to Jordy, right? That's a trigger for Aaron to run, which is a trigger for Tom to run, which is a trigger for Henry to do what he does, which is amazing. So let's have a look at it right now. Henry's getting onto the field, he's getting on behind his guy, and he's waiting for the play to start. He walks forward, draws his man in, and then makes his run after the ball goes to Jordan. Now, this is kind of something that happens with playing with somebody for a while, as Jordan and Henry have done. I'm sure they've done that a few times. But when you combine it with Tom's movement, with Aaron's movement, with Daniel and Joe kind of starting the tempo off for all of these things to go, all of a sudden now you get this symphony of what is actually amazing soccer. So let's talk about the final product of this. It's kind of obviously the last sort of stage of this whole little build-up and play. We'll see it again soon. Henry's going to receive the ball again. He's going to drive in after beating his man. Good decision all around. And then we get to kind of the final sort of action here. So, number one, Henry should be looking to aim far post with this much space. It's tricky because he has to take that touch wider, like to the line. But, when possible, I think that one did end up missing near post. We can't really see it, but it's there. When possible, we should try to aim for that far post for a few reasons. One, the keeper never covers the far post as much as they cover the near post unless they're awful. You'll see that right away, though, and usually it's pretty easy to adjust that when it comes time. So typically what your thought process should be to hit the far post all the time, pretty much every single shot. The other thing that we could do to kind of increase our chances here is work on Tom and Aaron's runs. So Tom chooses to kind of go near post, and Aaron kind of stays top-ish, but behind. Near the end of Aaron's run, he does peel out a bit. I would like to see that earlier for a couple reasons. Number one, if Henry does shoot far post, which he should, then Aaron's there for kind of a rebound tap and whatever. If Tom does make that run inside. Tom did a good job attracting people, but the problem is he's not an immediate goal-scoring option for Henry. And so what I would like there instead is for Tom to actually try to make a near-post run and beat his man in that little 1v1 that he's got now. And here's how you do it. First things first, I've frozen the game here because this is a really pivotal moment. So number one is Tom's got to recognize his situation. He's man-marked, and he's kind of got a guy who's looking a bit away from him. But the biggest thing that he needs to recognize is that he has that guy isolated, and he can make a very direct run to what would be a far post finish. Tom's mark kind of turns with the ball, and Tom's kind of free-ish in behind him. Okay? So now you'll see that player is going to turn and look at Tom, shoulder check on his left, and then look back at the ball. So what that's going to give Tom is a cue that when that player looks, he knows Tom is there. To set himself up, what he should do is run off the right shoulder, like one step to the right here, and then when the player looks back at the ball, boom, then burst of speed to the far post. And Henry should be able to see that, and he should be able to get a ball earlier in, I think, on his second or third touch here. Yeah, sorry, it's his third touch there. But Tom should still make that far post, well, Tom's near post, Henry's far post run, and hopefully that can result in a goal. Aaron, if he sees Tom's run, he has to play off. And he did an okay job in what actually happened playing off of it. He kind of started to drift far post. But just due to his distance from the actual play, he's kind of just, he's almost too far off to be far post. Just kind of stay central and look to kind of run at the goalie and see if there's a tap in, and then put the ball in off that. If Tom does make that far post run, Aaron should be doing the same thing, but kind of looking for more space, as there will generally be a bit more space kind of out there for him. I hope you guys enjoyed this. This was a lot of fun for me to do. It took actually quite a lot of time, probably like 3.5 hours for what is actually like, a 7-second play. But I hope you guys got a lot of it. If you guys have any questions, come see me. I know there's a lot to unpack here, and the reality is, like, once you start looking at the games like this, you only get better and better, and you only start seeing more and more and more, right? It was only, on my 100th watch through of this clip that I realized a couple things, and for that reason, it's good to just watch, analyze, digest, rewatch, listen, converse with other people and get their feedback too. All right, so that about does it. We've got a game in about an hour, and I gotta go teach class, but like I said, this was a good time, so have a nice day.